Okay, so hello and welcome to today's webinar on registration and mentorship in Ontario. Thank you for being here. So today I am one of your presenters. My name is Colleen Myrie and I am the Director of Registration Services here at the college. Also with me today is Jennifer Cupid, who is the International Applications Coordinator, and Smita Daglekar, who is the Audiology Advisor and Manager of Mentorship here. We will be having the following content to the presentation. The first subject will be the Canadian Entry to Practice exam. Then we'll talk a little bit about good character. Then we will talk about becoming a CASLPO registrant, both the application and registration process. And we'll also be talking about the mentorship program. After the registration portion of the webinar, we will be having a break for questions, and we will be having a second break for questions after the mentorship portion. We have disabled the chat feature for this webinar. So if you have any questions, please send them to us in the QA box. Our moderator, Jessica Laforette, she will be choosing the questions that we'll answer during the question breaks. So if you miss anything today, a recording of this webinar will be posted on our website probably next week, along with the slides. So, and I believe there is also a handout, so let's get started. So our first topic is the Canadian Entry to Practice exam. Whoops. So the Canadian Entry to Practice exam is a national standardized competency-based examination for audiologists and speech-language pathologists. The proposed amendments to CASLPO's registration regulation include a new requirement for all applicants to pass the CETP exam, which is the acronym. CASLPO will only require applicants to pass the CETP exam after our amendments to the registration regulation are approved by the Ministry of Health. The amendments to CASLPO's registration regulation have not been approved yet. CASLPO's council has decided that the college will not require successful completion of the CEPT exam until April 1st, 2021. So what this means is that applicants who, any application that the college receives prior to April 1st, 2021 will not be required to write the CETP exam to be registered in Ontario. And this will apply even if the amendments to our registration regulation are approved before the April 1st, 2021 date. The Canadian Alliance of Audiology and Speech-Language Pathology Regulators, called CASPR, they are responsible for the implementation of the CETP exam. And CASPR's website includes information about applying for the CETP exam. However, the information provided on CASPR's website may differ from the information provided by CASLPO. So we just like to warn you of that. And also say that if you are applying for registration in Ontario, you must only obtain information about registration in Ontario and the CETP exam from CASLPO's website. If you are applying for registration in another province, we would advise you to consult that province's regulatory body. So we received a few questions prior to getting this webinar underway, and one of them was, will my exam results expire after a certain amount of time? So the answer to that is yes. Exam results will expire after a certain time. CASLPO, however, has not set a limit yet, but we anticipate that the exam results will expire within 2 to 3 years. Our second question is, after meeting the requirement for issuance of an initial certificate and passing the CETP exam, can a new graduate register with CASLPO as a non-practicing registrant? And the answer to that one is that in order to be a non-practicing registrant, the applicant must be a general registrant of CASLPO or be eligible to hold a general certificate. So what this means is that in order to have a general certificate, you have to have completed at least 750 hours of patient care or related work within the last 3 years in another jurisdiction, or you have to have completed CASLPO's mentorship program. As a new graduate, you would not be able to obtain registration as a non-practicing registrant. So our next topic is good character. So when we talk about good character, what is it? We have the word cloud, and you'll see a bunch of words that relate to good character, such as honesty, ethics, standards. But when CASLPO thinks about good character, it's really defined by a section of our registration regulation, section 3 actually. And it talks about aspects such as a criminal background or misconduct and things of that nature. But it also broadly talks about the following items, which are your past and present conduct. And we're looking to see that it doesn't have any, that you don't have any physical or mental conditions or disorders that might affect your ability to practice the profession in a safe manner. We're also looking to see whether there's anything in your background to determine whether or not you would not be able to practice with decency, integrity, and honesty, and in accordance with the law. And we're also looking to see whether or not you would, there's anything that would let us know that you wouldn't be able to display an appropriate professional attitude. So we've pulled this example from the headlines. A group of male dentistry students at Dalhousie University posted sexually violent comments about female classmates on a group Facebook page. The content of the Facebook page became public, and the university suspended the 3 students who were members of the group. So what should the registration committee do if they receive an application from one of these students? So we have a poll, And we have these four options. Either the registration committee would issue a certificate of registration. They might issue a certificate of registration if the applicant successfully completes additional training, maybe a sexual harassment awareness and prevention training, or they could refuse the certificate of registration, or none of the above. So we're just going to launch the poll.
Waiting for some responses to come through. And here they come. Okay, we're at a little over 50%. Now we're at 60%, so I'll close the poll and share the results.
All right. So most of you have said that you would refuse to issue a certificate of registration, and some were calling for some sort of training. Basically, A, B, and C, those options are all available to the registration committee. And the misconduct itself does not necessarily bar an applicant from registration, but it does trigger an inquiry into that applicant's suitability to practice. So each applicant would be assessed by the registration committee on a case-by-case basis. And the committee would want to know what the applicant's conduct was, the details of conduct before a decision would be made about registration with the college. They would look at things like the nature of the conduct, whether or not that applicant had done any kind of remediation based on their actions, those kinds of things before making a final decision. So we will move to the topic of registration with CASLPO.
Okay, Jennifer, you should have control now.
Oh, I'm not yet.
Oh, sorry, Colleen.
That's okay.
Okay, Colleen, you should have control.
Thanks.
There you go.
Okay. Hold on. Could you try again, Smita?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I think.
Yeah, you should have it.
Okay. So an important thing to note about regulated professions is that registration with CASLPO is not and not the university degree in audiology or speech language pathology is what gives the legal authority to use the titles of audiologist, speech language pathologist, speech therapist, or any abbreviation or variation of these titles, and to provide audiology and speech language pathology services in Ontario. So self-regulation is what we would consider a privilege and not a right. So when you register with CASLPO, you're joining the company of all other regulated professionals in the province. This includes nurses, doctors, lawyers, engineers. Let's just say that's kind of a big deal. So we have a scenario where Mia She is she has a master's degree in speech language pathology from University X, and she plans to work in Ontario, but she is not a registrant of CASLPO yet. And Mia decides to create a LinkedIn profile. So Mia, this is the profile that Mia has created. She lists herself as a speech language pathologist, pre-registered in Ottawa, Canada area. And she, in her summary, she says, I'm a pre-registered speech and language pathologist based in Ontario. I have excellent communication skills and pride myself on my ability to develop a rapport with clients and their families. So is the information on Mia's LinkedIn profile acceptable according to the college's regulations? Yes or no? And this is another poll.
Just waiting for some responses. All right, they're starting to come through. And I'll close that one.
Okay, so mostly people have said no. There are a few yeses, but we would definitely say what is the problem? So the answer is definitely no. It's not. It does not meet our standards, and the reason is that Mia is using the title of speech language pathologist before she has obtained her registration with the college in Ontario, and she has put pre-registered in brackets. However, that is just deemed a variation of the professional title, which you can't do either. So now we'll hand it over to Jennifer.
Okay.
So hello, everyone. I will take you through the actual how to apply process, and I'll see if my cursor works. Let me see.
You should have control. Let me just double check.
Oh, can I see it? Okay.
Just a second. Try now.
Okay. Not yet. Oh, there we go.
Got it?
It's probably going to fast forward through 5 slides now, but we hope not. Okay, so after you graduate, if you're going to work in Ontario, you will apply for an initial certificate with CASLPO. And we offer an initial certificate of registration to new graduates or other applicants who have fulfilled all of the registration requirements and who have less than 2 years of professional experience in an unregulated province or another country. So where do you start? Well, what you do, so you guys are going to be graduating from a Canadian program with candidate status. So your process is slightly different from the other programs. And so you will start by submitting or completing the initial certificate application form for the international graduates pathway. It's a bit of a misnomer, but that's the form that you will fill. And you will find it if you go to our website at CASLPO.com. See on the lower right-hand side, there's an applicant section. You click on that. And then on the left-hand side, a menu will pull up and you click on apply to the college. And then below that, another menu will appear, which is the international allocated applicants. You click on that, and then at the bottom of that page, it says for the application package, click here. And so that will give you the application guide as well as all of the forms that you need to fill out. So we need that form completed, and we also require an official transcript from your graduate program. And so typically we require the official transcript to be sent to us directly from the university. And so an official transcript is an academic record that includes all the course names as well as the credit received for each successfully completed course, and it's sent directly by mail to CASLPO in a university sealed signature stamped envelope. So we're just making this information clear because during the pandemic, we are making some adjustments to our process. And I'm not sure if McMaster, what stage they're at with their application or their transcripts. But if you are unable to obtain official transcripts due to shutdowns within the university, and this would apply actually as well to that we require. So temporarily, we are accepting unofficial transcripts if your university is not able to send official transcripts at this time. And then the condition is that after the pandemic has subsided, we will require that all applicants who provided unofficial transcripts must submit official transcripts after the pandemic has subsided. So an unofficial transcript, it's a document that must include the name of the academic institution, it must include your name, and it must indicate all the course names as well as the credit that was received for each successfully completed course. So all that information has to be on an unofficial transcript. And this may be an academic record obtained from your institution that does not bear the signature or it's not printed on security paper. It could be a hard copy of an original transcript that maybe you've already opened the envelope, so it's no longer in a sealed signature stamped envelope. That is an unofficial transcript that we would accept. Or it could be an electronic transcript that's printed and rescanned into an email. So again, those were during the pandemic, we are accepting unofficial transcripts if your university is not able to provide official transcripts at this time. We also require, and this is only if we require transcripts from your bachelor's degree as well, because we need to see that coursework. So only if your bachelor's degree was taken outside of Canada do you need to follow this step. And that is, we require an academic credential assessment report. And information is in the application guide about this. If you use World Education Services or WES, we require a document by document. If you go through IQOS, we require the basic assessment evaluation. And these reports must be sent to the college, and we don't accept photocopies of these documents. Again, this is only required if your other degree was obtained outside of Canada. We also require a letter from your program director verifying the completion of your master's degree and verifying the date on which your degree will be conferred. So, and this is if you are applying before you received your diploma or you've had your graduation ceremony. So if you're applying shortly after and your transcript won't actually be finalized by this point, we require your official transcript as well as this letter from your program director verifying that all of the documents have been completed or all the course components have been completed. And we require an original signature on that document. And we require a completed coursework requirements form. And I believe you guys have probably been reviewing this, but I could be wrong with your professors. So in the coursework areas, I'll just go through it quickly and what's required of you guys because it differs from actual international applicants. So there are 5 sections. There's basic communication processes, there's related areas, there's the major professional area, which for you is speech pathology. There's the minor professional area, which for you is audiology. And then there's a content area section, and that's from speech pathology. So here, so I will say, we're in touch with your professors a lot, and they have done a lot of the work for you on this. They have provided CASLPO with all of the hours from your master's degree broken down into the different sections. So you only need to provide the coursework from your previous degree or degrees as they fit into this chart. And we'll go through that in a second. And so, yeah, we'll show you that. So I will make one exception, is the audiology hours are one exception about what you've gotten from your master's degree. And this harkens back to our registration regulation approval process that Colleen spoke about. So until, sorry, excuse me, until our amendments to the application to the registration regulation are approved by the Ministry of Health, the requirement in the minor professional area of audiology is 90 hours of coursework. Your master's program has provided you with 60 of these hours throughout your 2 years. If you took an undergraduate audiology course, then you probably have those extra 30 hours from that course. If you didn't take an audiology course of some sort in your undergraduate degree, then you will obtain these extra hours from McMaster in a separate course. And I believe this course has already started. But in either case, whether you took the audiology coursework in your undergraduate degree or you're taking this extra course from McMaster, included on the form. And so this is what the form looks like. If I could see you, this would be more interactive. I could see what you've done and seen already, but we'll assume it's going well. So this first section, as I said, is basic communication processes, and examples of courses in this area are human anatomy, human physiology, speech mechanisms, physiology, anatomy, phonetics, phonology, acoustics, intro to linguistics, semantics, morphology, psycholinguistics. All these courses fit into this section. And generally, we say we need, well, the regulation says we need 270 coursework hours in this section. We know from the information from your professors that you have completed a large part of these hours, so you must show us from your undergraduate degree or other coursework you've done outside of your master's, you must show 124.125 hours of coursework in this section. And in the related areas, section 2, examples of courses from this area are Intro to Psychology, Abnormal Psychology, Sociology, Child Development. The next section is Statistics, Research Methods coursework. And the bottom section does come from your master's generally, professional issues, professional practice courses. So again, because your professors have given us all the coursework hours from your master's that apply to this area, what we need to see from you is 69.875 hours in this section. And again, that will come from your undergraduate degree. So section 3 is the SLP courses. You don't need to fill this one out because your professors have given us a sufficient number of hours in this area. In the minor professional area, the audiology courses, what I was speaking about before, you have to show us an additional 30 hours, whether it's from your undergraduate degree or from this extra course you're doing at Mac right now. And then this content areas slide, you don't need to fill this out because your professors have filled it out for us. Excuse me. So calculating coursework hours. I'll just go through this quickly. Hours are calculated generally by, you take a course and you look at the number of hours per week in a course. Often 3-credit courses are generally 3 hours of classroom a week. Your syllabus may say there's more, and then you put those extra hours on if it's true. You take the number of hours per week and multiply by the number of weeks in the semester. So generally in Canada, programs are 12 to 13-week semesters. So if it's a 3-hour course and it's a 13-week semester, then that's 39 hours. Exam weeks are not included in this, but midterm test weeks are. So essentially the number of hours you sit in a classroom learning stuff, that's the number of weeks in a semester. So this information should be contained in your syllabi from the courses or the transcript from your undergraduate degree. Sometimes it tells us how many hours in a semester and how many weeks per credit course. And essentially we need this documentation so that we can verify the number of hours that you completed in the different courses. If in your syllabus and your transcript that information is not available, then we need a letter from your professor who can tell us how many hours there were. just so that we have that documentation. Okay, so the next thing we need is syllabi. So what we ask for is a syllabus for each undergraduate course that you're using, that you're inputting on your coursework form to meet the requirements. And we also need a signed and verified CASLPO summary of clinical practicum hours form, which it comes in the guide, in the application guide. And I know that Justine is already, she's working on this. She's got it all figured out. So you will ask her to send it to us. And it will be signed, and we do not, photocopies aren't acceptable. We need to have the original signature for this. And we need a document providing proof of eligibility to work in Canada. So it could be a Canadian citizenship, like a photocopy of your birth certificate or Canadian passport or citizenship card, or a permanent resident document, or a work permit that shows that you are authorized to work in the country. And there's an application fee of $150, which must be included with your application. So this is the last page form in the guide, and so you just a checklist so you can make sure that you've sent everything. The starred item is what I referred to before, and it's only applicable if your undergraduate degree was taken outside of Canada, and if it was, then you need to have that transcript evaluated for Canadian equivalency by one of the organizations that we've listed in the guide. The X is you guys do not need to show proof of English proficiency or French proficiency because your master's program is in English, so you don't need to provide that to us. So just as a summary, the following documents are the ones that must be originals. University transcripts, and I've got the asterisk there because in case your university is not able to send originals at this time, we will accept the unofficial transcript and we'll get the original later. The letter from your program director indicating that the program components have all been completed must be original, and your clinical practicum hours form must be original. Okay, so how long does the process take? So once your application form is received, it will take up to 15 business days or 3 weeks for us to review your documentation and send you an email confirmation that it has been received. So we'll let you know that we've received your application form, and we'll let you know which documents we have received, and we'll let you know if there are any documents that are missing from your application. The review process, once we have the completed application, the review process may take up to 10 weeks to complete unless there's some issue that's identified. Okay. All right, we'll try clicking again. Nope, Samita, have I lost my power to click?
Let me check. Hang on. You should still have it. Hang on, I've given it back to you. See if you can do it.
Let's see. Oh dear, sorry about this. Let me see if I can click this way. There we go. Okay, so we'll go through a few scenarios in this section. Here is the first one. So Mia is an applicant, and she's concerned that her courier company didn't send her application package properly to CASLPO. Should Mia contact the college to confirm receipt of her application? So we'll do a quick poll on this. Okay. So if you can do a quick vote on this one, should Mia contact CASLPO to confirm that we have received the application?
I think it just takes a moment for the responses to come through.
Okay. There we go, we're getting some votes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Just close the poll and share.
Okay. So most of you had said no. And that is what we would hope for. And the reason for this, we are committed to processing applications as quickly as possible and in the order that each application is received and completed. The reason we ask you not to call or email about the status of your application is because these emails, they really do slow down our processes, and that will just cause further delays in how fast we can do all the reviews. So we do know that we will contact you as soon as we can about the documents that we receive, and we will contact you as soon as we can about the review being complete, because we know how you are feeling at that time. So applications, once the college is confirmed that the application package is complete, then we place your application in a queue for processing. Just again, a few adjustments we make during the pandemic. There are no walk-in visits at this time. We're virtual, as you can tell, but we are still running our registration services. It is possible that there are delays to processing times. So we request your patience if you experience any of these delays. We are certainly working as quickly as we can through this process. Okay, so we have a couple scenarios. So Mia is back and she calls Jessica Lefferette at CASLPO and she says, I have been offered my dream job and the employer says I need to start in 2 weeks. I'm just about to submit my application to CASLPO. If I'm not registered in 2 weeks, I will lose this job opportunity. So our poll question is, should CASLPO push this file to the top of the queue so that she may start her employment in 2 weeks? So we'll open the poll. Okay. All right, we're slow on the, it's slow to pick up the system. Okay. All right, probably close it now, Samita. There we go. And so 100% of you said no. And yes, that's what we would say. Let's get to the next slide. So, and the reason is that we must provide an impartial, transparent, and fair process for all the applicants that apply to us. And this is required by the Office of the Fairness Commissioner of Ontario. It has to be impartial, transparent, and fair. So if we were to advance Mia's file because of this dream job opportunity, it's unfair to others who are ahead of her in the list, and that may be you. You may be at the top of the list. These others who submitted their applications earlier, and they may also be waiting to start their dream job. So we have to do this in a fair manner. Our next scenario is Mia's potential employer calls Jessica Lefferette at CASLPO and says, I would like to hire this graduating student for a position we have. We need her to start in 2 weeks, otherwise the children at the center will not get the service they are entitled to. So if Jessica gets this call, should she push it to the top of the queue? For those children who are not getting their service. Okay, we're getting a lot of the votes. Okay. All right, so you've all answered no. And let's see. Yes, the answer is no. Sorry, correct. The answer is no. And again, because we need to provide an impartial, transparent, and fair process for all applicants. So if we advance Mia's file because the children in that one center would not receive service, it's again unfair to other applicants and other potential clients of other places So those other applicants who submitted their applications earlier and who may be ready to begin working with other individuals in the province who are not currently receiving service. So we can't adjudicate this in an impartial, transparent, and fair manner. So the moral is that line jumping is not allowed. So we can't advance files outside of our queue. So our advice is to plan ahead, start your application process as quickly as you can. And when you're speaking with potential employers, let them know about the application process and the registration process, and let them know what the timelines are. We do have the timelines available on our website. You can show them where to find it on the website, but it is not possible for us to expedite any applications. Okay, so the application review process, once we have the completed application and it's gone through the queue, it's assessed by college staff to determine if all the college's registration requirements have been met. If your application is approved, you'll be notified by email that you are now eligible for registration with the college. Okay, and I will move us back to Colleen, or maybe Samita, if you could give Colleen the
Sure.
clicking things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Colleen, you should be able to advance.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jennifer has just talked to you about the application review process. And once that's completed, you move on to the registration process. So the registration process, as I said, happens after the application process is successful, and you will receive an initial certificate registration form from CASLPO's program assistant after your application has been reviewed and you are deemed eligible for registration. So in order to complete the registration process and become an initial registrant of CASLPO, you must secure an offer of employment to work as an audiologist or a speech language pathologist in Ontario. So when you're completing the initial certificate registration form, you after you've completed it, and the college has received it, it takes approximately 5 business days to process. So we want to receive that form at least 5 business days before your actual start date. So the registration form includes your mentor's name. It also includes your employment start date. So this date is the date that you expect to begin working as an audiologist or a speech language pathologist in Ontario. If you don't know that date, then you can just put in the application form pending completion of registration in Ontario or with CASLPO. And that's sufficient for us to process. We also want your employment information confirmed, so where the information of where you've been offered work, the business address and the telephone number. We also need confirmation that you have professional liability insurance coverage. So the information that we need is the carrier name, the policy certificate number, and the expiry date. You must have coverage of at least $2 million per claim. And so that's specifically professional liability insurance coverage. And you can get insurance coverage either through your employer. So you should probably have that discussion with your employer, or if your employer does not provide insurance coverage, you would have to get that on your own. So you could approach, if you are a member of either SAC or OSLA or CAA, you can get insurance coverage through one of those professional associations. The other option would be simply to Google professional liability insurance in Ontario, and some providers could come up that way. So we don't really, as a college, endorse any insurance providers. We do say that you have to do your own research and ensure that that coverage meets the college standards. The college has an application, or not application, we have a registration fee of $50. We also have a prorated annual fee that's required as well. So the prorated annual fee, it is a fee that is prorated quarterly. And our registration year runs from October 1st to September 30th. So we chop that fee up into 4 quarters. And so if you start working during the last quarter of our registration period, you would only pay a quarter of the full annual fee. And then we have a chart available on our website that shows what the prorated amounts are. So you would just go to our site, and we have the link here. The registration processing timeline, it takes approximately 5 business days to issue a certificate of registration. And then congratulations, you're now an initial member of CASLPO. Once you are a member of CASLPO, we just want to remind everybody that because our registration period runs from October to September 30th every year, you do have to renew your certificate on or before October 1st. So even if you become a member at the beginning of September, you would have to renew for the coming registration period when you first become a member. Okay? So we have a bunch of FAQs on our website. So if you go to the Apply to the College section of the website, you'll see a bunch of frequently asked questions there. And I guess we will go to Jessica, our moderator, and ask if there are any questions.
I have 3 questions, and I'm going to start with this one. It's, hello, I'm a bit unclear about whether we need to have transcripts sent from undergraduate work. Is it needed to prove that we have those hours, particular coursework hours?
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay.
Are you muted, Jennifer? Okay, good.
Yes, we do require a transcript for any course that you have on your coursework form. So your undergraduate degree is in all likelihood going to have coursework that's on the coursework form, and any other, if you took a course at a different university, a single course, and that course is included on the coursework form, then we do require that transcript as well as an original.
All right, I have another question, and it's, I completed my undergrad degree in 1997. I have been in contact with Western about getting syllabi. Nothing was put online until several years later. They are hoping to get in to look at the physical syllabi, but currently do not have access due to COVID-19. I'm quite worried about whether I will be able to access the course details, including hours. Do you have any advice? I just want to reiterate, this was from Western University undergrad degree.
Okay, so this is a more nuanced answer. Essentially, I will start broadly. Essentially, we ask for course syllabi in order to determine or verify the number of hours for a course that relate to a specific content area, and for the content of the course to make sure that it fits in the specific content area. So generally syllabi have both of those types of information. Sometimes syllabi can be difficult to find. We suggest you do your best. If so, Western, I will say, I think it's a 13-week semester, and if it's a 3-credit course, we know that that's 39 hours. So we're not worried about the number of hours from a Western undergraduate course. So there we need the content. And if you're unable to find the syllabus, but the course name is Introduction to Phonetics, then that's a pretty transparent course title. So generally, I'm going to put asterisks next to what I'm saying. Generally, if the course's title is Introduction to Phonetics, we probably don't need a syllabus if I know that it's a University of Western course. So if you can't find the syllabus and it is a course called Phonetics or Intro to Linguistics or Intro to Psych, where it's clear the content of the course and I know the course hours, then a syllabus is not crucial. If it's a course like biological psychology, the course title is not transparent, so it's unclear what section that would go in. So in that case, we would ask for a course syllabus. If it's from a university outside of Canada, the course hours may be less clear. Sometimes transcripts provide information about the number of hours. So we do look in different sources for information for people who have trouble finding syllabi. We suggest syllabi from the wrong year, like the current syllabus when you graduated 8 years ago, because that doesn't tell us what the hours and the content were in that year. So my nuanced answer is do your best to find what documents you can. If it's readily apparent from the course title and it's a Canadian university, we can assign that course to a specific content area. If it's unclear from the course title and from the university how many hours, what the content is, then we do require some documentation. You can also call or contact the university registrar, I believe it is, to see if they have course catalogs from previous years, and that will have descriptions of courses, and that will give us some information about content. So we say do your best. If we don't have all the information we need when it comes to reviewing your application, then we have to come back to you and ask you for more information. So that's why we say do your best, get us as much information, as much documentation as you can. Because if when you get to the top of the queue, we review your file and we don't have the information, then the process will take longer.
Okay, and if we have time for one more question, I have this one. It says, McMaster undergraduate does not have proof of the number of hours in the transcript or syllabi. I have been in contact with them and they have said that the number of hours relates to number in the course code. For example, if the course code ends with a 3, there are 30 hours in the course. I'm just wondering how you would like us to provide evidence of this.
So again, it's really the number of weeks. So if it's a 3-credit course, it's 3 hours a week. And then if it's 3-credit course, it's 3 hours per week. And then it depends on the number of weeks in the semester. So you could even go to the university course calendar for what year you were in, because this exists on the website, and it'll show you when the classes started, when the classes end. And you can tell me from that how many weeks are in the semester. So again, our assumption is that a Canadian university probably has 36, maybe 39 hours in a 3-credit course. If you're claiming, this is another nuance, if you're claiming, oh, but there was also a lab, 3 hours of lab and 3 hours of coursework, but I don't have any documentation that shows that, then we can't verify that information and you wouldn't be credited with those hours.
All right. I just want to say that if we don't get to your question during the webinar, or I don't answer it in the comment section, we will get back to you within the next week with answers to your questions. Thank you.
So I guess we are moving on to mentorship. Not sure why. So I guess we'll hand things over to Samita Jalkar.
Okay, hello everybody watching. I'm Samita Joglekar. I am the audiology advisor and the manager of mentorship at CASLPO. So I will be telling you about the mentorship program. So mentorship is a condition of an initial certificate of registration. So the whole first part of the presentation you just listened to from Colleen and Jennifer was about how to apply and how to become registered. So now you are, let's assume, an initial registrant of CASLPO, and as an initial registrant, you are required to complete the mentorship period. So the purpose of the mentorship period is to introduce you as an initial registrant to CASLPO's quality assurance program through an online self-assessment tool that you complete and a process of reflecting on your practice, understanding the practice standards of the college, and then evaluating your practice. So let's go through the basics of the mentorship period. So the mentorship period is always a minimum of 6 months. During that time, you as the mentee must provide at least 500 hours of patient care. Your mentor must provide you with at least 48 hours of guidance, and this can be direct or indirect guidance. We define that more in the mentorship guidelines. Direct means, in this situation we're in now with the pandemic, direct would probably most likely be like a real-time video phone call with your mentor. In pre-pandemic times, it would have also been being in the same room with your mentor and having a conversation about your practice. Indirect guidance includes things like having telephone calls with your mentor, email communication, or some exchange of comments in the mentorship self-assessment tool. And I'll tell you more about the tool later on. Some observation of your practice is mandatory during the mentorship period. And we want you to spread the guidance that you receive from your mentor and the observation possibly over time. So we recommend 2 hours per week. We don't want you to have, 6 successive days, 8 hours a day with your mentor. We want you to spread out that time. So as a mentee and with your mentor, you will complete the mentorship self-assessment tool throughout the mentorship, so over the course of the 6 months. And your mentor will submit reports to the college at the midterm and at the end of your mentorship using the MSAT tool. So the mentorship period may be extended if a formal request is approved by the college, but the mentorship period cannot exceed 24 months. And during the time of the pandemic, we are offering greater flexibility with granting you extensions because we do recognize that it may be harder for you to get those 500 patient care hours. You may have to spend some time figuring out your practice, maybe providing a lot more virtual care. So we wanted to let you know that during the time of the pandemic, when there are challenges to complete these requirements, we are being quite flexible with granting extensions. So we would like to talk a little bit about mentorship versus supervision because there is a difference. Mentorship is not the same thing as supervision. So during the mentorship, you as an initial registrant are accountable for all of your clinical work and decisions. So a question we want to put to you is, what does being accountable mean? And this is not a polling question, but maybe if you have a piece of paper in front of you, you could just take a moment to think about what does it mean to be accountable, and maybe just write down a word that you associate with accountable or being accountable. And how is it different from how you are as a student? So accountability, there's lots of words there that are associated with accountability: liability, trustworthiness, responsible, commitment, governance. What we would say about this is that accountability means that you are a professional who is expected and required to explain your actions and decisions. That's what it means to be accountable for your clinical work and decisions. So what does it mean to be a professional? What is professionalism? Well, professionalism is a combination of lots of different things. If you can think about in your own life, people that you have interacted with, and when you think about that person, you think that that person is really professional. It's probably because they exhibited many of these attributes or qualities. So having a desire to always improve and to keep learning throughout your career, that's a sign of being professional. Knowing the limitations of your knowledge and your scope of practice, being a leader whenever you can be rather than a follower, doing your best even when it's challenging. This is a good one. You know, we all have days in our professional lives when it seems hard and challenging. You know, maybe you're going through something personally, you're dealing with some difficult issues, but being a professional means that you bring your best to your work always, and you have a way of dealing with those things separately. Always putting your patients first, and of course, maintaining professional boundaries. And professionalism is also a set of behaviors, you know, being responsible, reliable, courteous, fair, honest. These are all marks of being professional, or of someone who is professional. So talking about accountability and professionalism, we have a scenario for you. We have Mia, she's back. So Mia is an initial registrant speech-language pathologist with CASLPO, and she works as an independent contractor. So during the course of her work, and she's at the beginning of her career as an SLP, as an initial registrant, she's told by a senior colleague that consent for assessment doesn't need to be documented in the patient record. But this is incorrect. Both consent for assessment and treatment must be documented according to CASLPO practice standards. So unfortunately, a complaint is filed to the college that involves Mia. And during the investigation of this complaint, patient records are reviewed, and it is confirmed that consent for assessment wasn't documented by Mia in the patient records. So Mia is asked to explain, you know, why she didn't, why that consent wasn't documented. And her explanation is, I was told by a senior colleague that this was okay, so I trusted them and I didn't question it. I didn't want to create tension between me and my employer by asking too many questions about this. I was new at the time and I didn't realize this was wrong. So do you think, we're putting this question to you now, do you think Mia's justification for her actions and decisions is reasonable in this case? And this is a polling question, so I'm just going to open up the poll. And let us know what you think. It looks like, okay, the responses suddenly begin to come through. Okay, so almost 60% of you have voted now, so I'm going to close the poll and share the results with you. So none of you have said yes, 14% of you have said maybe, and 86% have said no. And the answer is no. This type of justification wouldn't be reasonable. Being naive isn't a defense. And so this is what we mean when we're talking about what does being accountable mean. It is a big change, you know, from being a student, because as a student you are supervised and your clinical supervisor is accountable for the patient care decisions, for the actions that are taken in the course of patient care. But now that you have become an initial registrant of CASLPO, You're allowed to use the title speech language pathologist or audiologist. The public recognizes you as being a part of that profession. You know, your academic achievements have been checked by the college, so it is a big deal. And this is part of why it's a big deal, because now you are accountable, you are a professional, and you're expected and required to explain why you did what you did. Okay, so what is your mentor's role if they're not supervising you? Because mentors are not supervisors, as we're discussing. So your mentor's role is to provide general guidance and support, to help you understand and apply the college's practice standards, to help you improve your competence, and to help you apply principles of sound clinical judgment. Mentors will observe and discuss your clinical practice with you in relation to the practice standards. And then we do ask mentors to assess if you have met the minimum practice standards of the college during your mentorship period and submit those reports to the college at the midterm and at the end. So when I say practice standards, what exactly am I talking about? Well, the college determines these practice standards, and basically these are the minimum performance expectations of all speech language pathologists and audiologists practicing in Ontario in all practice settings. So in the MSAT, the standards are outlined, and I'll show you what they look like, or I'll give you some examples of those standards. But generally, they are higher level principles that stand the test of time and that apply across the board. And then in addition to those principle-based standards, there are some area-specific standards. So for speech language pathologists, I've given you 2 examples. There is a practice standard for assessment of adults and children by SLPs, and there's a practice standard for dysphagia. There are a couple of others related to practice areas. So that's what I'm talking about, or what we mean when we say practice standards. So here are some more specific examples, and in the mentorship self-assessment tool that you use during the mentorship, the standards are outlined as categories with practice indicators that fall under each of those categories. So the categories, there's 5 of them. There's management practice, clinical practice, patient-centered practice, communication, and professional accountability. And underneath each category, there are a variety of, or a set of indicators. So for example, for patient-centered practice, one of the indicators is 3.1, which is I obtain and document consent for all intervention plans or courses of action and any significant changes thereafter. So you can see that that is a standard that is very much principle-based. It would apply in any practice setting that an SLP was working in, or an audiologist. And so this is part of what you're doing in the mentorship, is you're learning about the standards, you are reflecting on the standards and making sure that you meet them in your practice. And one of the reasons we feel that the mentorship period is so important is that you have this 6-month time where you have a mentor as a sounding board who you can discuss your clinical cases with, your practice with, and make sure that you do understand these standards and that you're meeting them. Okay, so how do you get started with your mentorship? Well, after you become an initial registrant of CASLPO, you should review the mentorship program guidelines and discuss these guidelines with your CASLPO approved mentor. The mentorship guidelines cover the whole mentorship process, and I'm sure likely they will answer many of the questions that you have. So once you've reviewed the guidelines, you then should submit a mentorship contract to the college within 30 days of beginning your employment. So you can start your employment, and then you have 30 days to review the guidelines, fill out that contract with your mentor, and send in the contract to us. And the reason I say CASLPO approved mentor is because we do have criteria to be a mentor. There are 8 criteria, and those criteria are stated in the mentorship guidelines. They're in an FAQ on our website, and I'll show you where you can find that information. but it's important that you know about these criteria, because when you're approaching SLPs to be your mentor, or if you're looking for a job, you're discussing with your employer the fact that you need to be mentored, and you want to make sure that your employer and your potential mentor know about these criteria. Okay, so where do you find the mentorship information on the website? So on the website, you would click on applicants, and then in the left-hand bar menu, you'll see an option to click on mentorship. You would, of course, click there. And then it will take you to a mentorship overview page that talks about the basics of CASLPO's mentorship period. And if you scroll down on that page, you'll come to a chart. And the chart has the mentorship program guidelines, the contract, and the mentor criteria are there. And then we have FAQs specifically about mentorship. I think we have about 25 or 28 FAQs, so that's a good place to go if you have questions to get some quick answers. Some important points that you'll be discussing with your mentor about the mentorship contract are, first of all, your start date. So a start date for your mentorship period, because that's what we use to calculate the 6 months. And that start date must be on or after the date of your initial registration. Then you're also going to discuss the process and requirements for mentoring. You're going to discuss where you'll meet with your mentor, how you'll meet with them, and how often. During this time of the pandemic, it may be more convenient or easier, or even just you may have to meet with your mentor virtually, over a real-time call. So you want to discuss all of that. You want to discuss the methods of evaluation and feedback. How will those be provided? Will they be written, verbal, in person, video calls, through the MSAT? And then we do ask you to identify a third party for conflict resolution. And that person does not have to be an SLP or audiologist. They can be an HR person or a manager or somebody else at the organization where you work who's willing to be that third party. So as I mentioned earlier, you and your mentor will be using the MSAT throughout the mentorship period. And the MSAT lets you do the following things. So basically you're able to log into that tool and do an assessment of your own practice based on the standards. And I'll show you more specifically how you do that. Your mentor can also log into the MSAT from wherever they are, and they can give you a rating on the standards and do an assessment of your practice. You can upload evidence files in the MSAT, and there are comment boxes in the MSAT where you can explain how you've met a standard, or you can ask a question, and your mentor can log in and view your evidence files and view your comments and questions, and they can also respond in a comment box. There's a learning goals section that you will complete in the MSAT, and then, as I've mentioned before, your mentor is submitting a midterm and a final evaluation report to the college via the MSAT. So when do you gain access to this tool? Basically, you and your mentor will gain access to the MSAT when your mentorship contract is approved. So once we receive your contract, we do verify your mentor and all of the information in the contract. And once the contract is approved, you will get an email from the college to tell you that the contract has been approved. And that email will also have instructions for how to log into the MSAT. Those instructions are also on the website. And the instructions for how to actually fill out your MSAT are within the MSAT itself. I'll show you more specifically where. So if you are on our website again, there is a section in that left-hand bar menu for the mentorship self-assessment tool. You click on it, and it takes you to an MSAT-specific web page. And there you'll see there's a little bit of information about the MSAT. There's a green button you click, which takes you to the login page for the MSAT. And the second FAQ is, how do I log in? So that information is there for you. But you won't be able to log in until your mentorship contract is approved. So a little bit more about the mentorship self-assessment tool. This is an online tool for mentorship that CASLPO launched just last year in June of 2019. And the reason that the college wanted to take the mentorship process online is because we wanted to reduce the amount of paper. We were receiving all of those reports from mentors and other documents in paper form, and we wanted to reduce paper, enhance efficiency of the process. And a big thing was to support distance mentoring. And I think we realized that especially during this time, the MSAT is going to be helpful to support that distance mentoring, because you can log in from wherever you are into your MSAT, your mentor can log in from where they are. There are comment boxes in the tool. So you can be using the MSAT in combination with having phone calls or email exchanges with your mentor, having real-time video calls. So the MSAT is going to be hopefully quite helpful for you. But this is just our second year using this online tool for mentorship. Depending on when you start the mentorship, we are introducing 4 new practice standards. And this is because there is an online self-assessment tool that is completed by general registrants of CASLPO every year. And the MSAT is basically a reflection of that tool. So 4 new standards are being introduced into that general registrant tool, and they're also coming into the mentorship self-assessment tool. And those 4 new standards are, I've listed them for you, but there's one on conflict of interest, there's one on clinical reasoning, and we are going to be asking mentors to do a clinical reasoning tool with initial registrants or mentees. And more information about that will be provided later this year to mentors and to you as initial registrants. There's going to be a new practice standard for advertising and a new practice standard for professionalism. So these are some screenshots of the MSAT just to show you what the tool looks like. So when you first log into the MSAT, this is what the landing page looks like. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see an area for mentee resources. There's documents there, some forms. When mentors log in, they see a mentor resources area. Then on the far left-hand side, you see a menu bar that has the 4 sections of the MSAT that you complete: the professional practice standards and indicators section, a midterm report, a learning goals section, and a final report. And the due dates for the reports are listed. Then there are some guidance documents, including an MSAT guide that has instructions for how to fill out and use the tool. And then in the center, there's a chart that shows you the timelines for completing each of the sections in the MSAT. At the top of each section of the MSAT, there are specific instructions for that section. So this is the professional practice standards and indicators section, and at the top, it's letting you know what you're supposed to do. So just important to have a look at those instructions, and mentors would see those instructions as well when they log in. And then this is showing you more closely what the professional practice standards and indicators section is like. So you see you're in the category of management practices, and the specific practice standard is indicator 1.2. I maintain records which accurately reflect the services provided. If you click on the arrow next to examples of meeting the standard, it shows you some examples of how you can show that you've met that standard or how to meet the standard. And then in this yellow area here, that's where you as the mentee, you reflect on your practice and you assign yourself a rating of either I meet the standard, I need work to meet the standard, or some of the standards may not be applicable. And then under mentee documentation, that's where you can upload some evidence to show yourself and to show your mentor that you have met that practice standard. And then when your mentor logs in, they see the standard, they see your rating, your comment. If you've uploaded an evidence file, there isn't one here, but there could have been. And then your mentor gives you a rating on the standard based on their discussion and observation of you and discussions with you during the mentorship. They assign a rating and then they can provide a comment in return. So just to recap, over the course of your mentorship, you as the mentee or as the initial registrant, you will be assessing your own practice, reflecting on how you are meeting the practice standards, and you'll do that in the MSAT. You'll be providing comments and evidence to demonstrate that you meet practice standards in your MSAT. Halfway through your mentorship at the midway point, we ask you to set at least 3 learning goals. And the reason we do that at the midway point is because by the time you get to the midterm, you've probably been practicing now for at least 3 to 4 months. So you'll have a better idea of which practice standards you know and you understand, and which standards you maybe need to do a little bit more learning about. Maybe you need to read some CASLPO documents, talk to some colleagues, do a webinar. There's lots of different things you can do to learn about and meet those standards. So we ask you to set 3 learning goals, and that's when you complete the learning goals section in your MSAT. You're going to discuss your self-assessment, evidence, and learning goals with your mentor at your midterm and final evaluation meetings. And you're also going to prepare 5 patient charts, patient records, for your mentor to review at the midterm and at the final. And basically your mentor is checking your patient records to make sure that you meet record-keeping standards. So 5 at the midterm and 5 at the final for a total of 10 patient charts. Over the course of your mentorship, your mentor is providing you with that general guidance and support on your professional practice, providing you with guidance on the standards and how to apply them in your practice. At the midterm and final evaluation meetings, your mentors will review your self-assessment, evidence, comments, learning goals in your MSAT. They'll review the 5 patient records that you've prepared to confirm that you meet the record-keeping standards. They will do their own assessment in the MSAT, as I showed you, to confirm that you're meeting the college's standards, and they will submit those reports to the college by the due dates. And importantly, in the final evaluation report, we do ask your mentor whether or not they recommend you for a general certificate of registration based on the mentorship period. Okay, so what happens after the mentorship period is completed? Well, hopefully your mentorship will be completed successfully, and if it is, you get your general registration with CASLPO. So we do review your midterm and final reports when they come in through the MSAT, and once those reports have been reviewed, you'll be informed that when your mentorship has been completed successfully. And then congratulations, you become a general CASLPO registrant. There are things that you have to do to maintain your general registration with CASLPO. So to maintain your general registration, you must provide 750 hours of patient care or related work in audiology or speech-language pathology during every 3-year period. And that first 3-year period begins on the day that you are issued your general certificate. And another thing you have to do to maintain your general registration over the course of your career in Ontario is that you have to meet the requirements of CASLPO's Quality Assurance Program. So that means filling out an online self-assessment tool every year called the SAT. It means you have learning goals for your practice every year. At least 3 are going to be required every year. You engage in continuing education. Here we call those continuous learning activity credits or CLACs, and those are usually or should be related to your learning goals. And as a general registrant, you may be selected for a peer assessment by CASLPO. So it's good that you'll be prepared, because the mentorship period that you do as an initial registrant somewhat prepares you for this. Basically, you go through this whole, you do the online MSAT, you formulate 3 goals, you talk to your mentor, you make sure you meet the standards. We want you to do this during the mentorship because it is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your career as long as you're practicing in Ontario. So the good news is when you do the mentorship, you'll be prepared. So that's the end of the mentorship portion of the presentation. So I'll turn to Jessica now and see if there are any questions that have come through.
Hey, Smita. So actually, there was only one question and I answered it. So I thought I would
great.
like ask some frequently asked questions that we usually get. That's okay? Okay. So
yeah,
the one I feel like I get a lot is if I change jobs partway through my mentorship and I have a new mentor, can I count patient care hours that I completed at the first job, or do I have to start my mentorship all over again?
Okay, yep, thank you for that question. So the answer is you can count the patient care hours that you got from the first job, but we do require some information from the first mentor that you had before you changed mentors to confirm that those hours were in fact completed, and to confirm, to give us some information on how the mentorship period had progressed so far. So it sort of depends on when you change mentors. If you change your mentor and it's close to the midterm, then you can ask your mentor, or we ask you to talk to your mentor and find out, are they able to fill out that midterm evaluation if it's very close to the date when it would be due anyway? And then in the midterm evaluation, they confirm that you've completed so many patient care hours, and they provide a comment on how the mentorship period has been going. If you change mentors much earlier in the mentorship period and it doesn't make sense for the midterm report to be done, then what we do is we ask for a short comment from your mentor. It could be an email that your mentor sends to the college, just to confirm that you have done so many patient care hours and that the mentorship was progressing quite well up to that point. And then you can count those hours that you did in the first job towards your mentorship as you move forward.
So now we have questions coming in, and one of them is, can your mentor be someone outside of your workplace? What if you are the only SLP working at your workplace?
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, that sometimes has happened, and you can get an external mentor. If your employer is not able to facilitate that, I mean, the first piece of advice I would give is, talk to your employer about the mentorship period and see if they are able to help you find a mentor who meets our criteria and help you set that up. If you're the only SLP and your employer is not able to really help you there, then you can contact us, contact the college, and we can give you a list of general registrants with the college who have agreed to be contacted for mentorship. And then you will have to contact those SLPs on that list and discuss the mentorship with them, the mentoring requirements, and make sure that they're able to take on that role and be your mentor. So yes, you can have an external mentor.
And then, oh, sorry. No, continue, Smita.
No, I was just saying, yeah, you can have an external mentor, but of course they have to meet our criteria. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Amazing.
Go ahead, Jessica.
I'm going to ask this question. So the question this person asked was, do we have to reach out to an SLP who is hiring in order for them to be our mentor? But what I'd like to kind of broaden that question to be is like, if my, oh no, you know what? I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah, no, that's it. Sorry, because I just realized you answered part of that.
Do I have to, what is that? Sorry, can you repeat it?
Sorry, the question again is, do we have to reach out to an SLP who is hiring in order for them to be our mentor? So I think the question is, sorry, I just want to interpret it a bit. I think the question is, if their employer is hiring, should they be asking if that they're going to provide them a mentor, maybe?
Okay, yeah, yes, I think it's important that you, when you're applying for jobs, you bring up the fact that mentorship is required in Ontario and that CASLPO requires you to do the mentorship, because don't assume that your employer knows about the mentorship program. Many employers may not be aware. And so you should definitely bring that up in the conversation with your employer and tell them about the mentorship period. And then you can ask them, you know, are there any SLPs on the team or within this organization who can mentor me? Here are the criteria. You know, the college has these criteria posted on their website. Whoever the SLP is who's going to mentor me, they do have to meet these criteria. So then your employer can maybe help you. The person who mentors you doesn't have to be like your boss or have to be hiring you necessarily. Like if you get a job at a hospital and there are several SLPs in the department, potentially any one of those SLPs could be your mentor if they meet our criteria. So I hope that answers the question.
I think it did. That's all I have. Okay.
Okay.
So thank you everyone for joining us today. I'd just like to remind you that we do have a couple links to our email. Actually, this one, we do have an international grads at CASLPO.com email address, and we have the mentorship at CASLPO.com as well. We do have a Facebook page and a YouTube page, so if you want to follow us on those socials, that would be great. And the college has a lot of resources, and we do have a newsletter called CASLPO Express, so feel free to have a look at those as well. So thank you again for joining us, and thanks to Samita Joglekar and Jennifer Cupid as well. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.